Australia is a land of extremes. Vast deserts stretch endlessly, jagged mountains pierce the sky, and wind-swept plains hide secrets that few ever see. Beneath this rugged beauty lie stories of ambition, fortune, and heartbreak. Tales of towns that rose overnight, fueled by dreams of gold, silver, oil, or other riches, and vanished just as suddenly when the resources ran out or the world moved on. Some were bustling communities with schools, hotels, churches, and theaters. Others were isolated outposts clinging to hope in the harshest landscapes imaginable. Today, what remains are crumbling buildings, rusting machinery, overgrown streets, and the ghostly whispers of lives that once thrived here. In this video, we'll uncover 10 of Australia's most haunting ghost towns, places where history seems frozen in time and nature has claimed back its territory. These are towns that dared to dream big, only to be swallowed by fire, frost, dust, or greed. What secrets do these abandoned streets hold? How did entire communities disappear almost overnight, leaving only echoes behind? Stick around, because the stories of these forgotten towns are stranger and more unforgettable than anything you've ever imagined. Let's begin. Number 10. Broad Arrow, the desert pub that outlived a city. In the heart of Western Australia's goldfields, Broad Arrow was once a thriving mining town, home to roughly 15,000 people at the peak of the 1890s gold rush. Prospectors, merchants, and families poured in, building 8 hotels, 3 churches, a school, and even a municipal council. Within just a decade, Broad Arrow had everything needed for a small city, complete with shops, banks, and a water tower to support its booming population. But gold deposits were finite. By the early 1900s, the easily accessible ore had been extracted, and larger mining operations shifted to nearby towns like Kalgoorlie and Boulder. The town's population plummeted. By 1910, fewer than 1,000 residents remained, and by the 1920s, Broad Arrow was effectively a ghost town. Businesses shuttered, houses were dismantled and moved, and families abandoned the iron-walled homes they had built. Today, the only building still in use is the Broad Arrow Tavern, standing as a solitary witness to a town whose population declined by over 90% in just 3 decades. Broad Arrow remains a stark lesson in the boom and bust cycles of Australia's mining history. Even decades later, the town's decline is visible from satellite images, where streets and plots that once hosted homes now lie empty beneath the desert sun. Tourists often leave signatures, stickers, or memorabilia on the tavern walls, transforming it into a living museum of memory and nostalgia. Historians note that Broad Arrow's story mirrors dozens of Western Australian gold towns, each abandoned once the ore ran out. Its survival as a single pub is a testament to both Australian resilience and the country's unique cultural attachment to drinking establishments in remote landscapes. Number 9. Linda, Tasmania's rowdy copper town frozen in time. In the Tasmanian remote Linda Valley, the town of Linda was built around the North Mount Lyell copper mine and the North Mount Lyell Railway, serving as both a mining hub and transport terminus. In its prime, the town housed around 1,000 residents, mostly miners and their families, and supported several hotels, a school, and a post office. The town was known for its rough reputation, fueled by a population heavily dominated by men and a scarcity of entertainment beyond drinking and brawls. However, the town's fortunes were tied entirely to the mine. In 1903, when the North Mount Lyell Copper Company was absorbed by a larger operation based in Queenstown, Linda's population began to drain rapidly. Within just a few years, over 90% of residents had left, leaving the town nearly abandoned. By the 1950s, the Royal Hotel, Linda's last functioning building, closed its doors, and the surrounding structures deteriorated. Today, only the hotel's crumbling concrete shell remains, surrounded by dense temperate rainforest. The contrast between the lush greenery and the gray ruins underscores how quickly industrial towns can vanish when their primary industry collapses. Linda is a haunting reminder that single industry settlements are extremely vulnerable. When the mine left, the town did not just decline, it effectively died. For those who wander through the ruins today, the valley tells a story of sudden abandonment, with rusted railway tracks and foundation stones hinting at a once bustling community. Archaeologists and heritage volunteers occasionally visit to document the remaining structures and preserve the memory of Linda's unique history. The isolation of the valley means that nature has almost reclaimed everything, leaving only fragments for visitors to explore. Linda remains a stark lesson in the consequences of economic centralization, where the fortunes of a single company can determine the survival or death of an entire town. Number 8. Kiandra, the birthplace of Australian skiing that burned to the ground. Kiandra sits in the snowy mountains of New South Wales, approximately 1,400 meters above sea level. For more than a century, it held the record as the highest town in Australia. It is considered the birthplace of Australian skiing because in the 1860s goldfields era, Scandinavian and Chinese miners strapped wooden planks to their boots and slid down the mountains for transport and eventually for entertainment. The Kiandra Snowshoe Club, founded in 1861, is considered the first ski club in the world outside Scandinavia. The town was established in 1839 and boomed during the gold rush of the 1860s when the population surged to approximately 10,000 people. Hotels, stores, a courthouse, a post office, and social institutions appeared, signifying that residents expected permanence. However, easily accessible gold deposits were quickly exhausted, and harsh winters with months of snow made mining difficult. By the early 1970s, the population began to decline, and by the early 20th century, only a few hundred residents remained, marking a 90% drop from its boom era. Kiandra experienced a brief renaissance as a ski resort. Chalets were built, a ski rope tow was installed, and in the 1950s, Australia's first T-bar ski lift was constructed. Despite attracting winter sports enthusiasts, the development of larger, better-funded resorts at Thredbo and Perisher drew visitors away. The population dwindled further as commercial skiing activity ceased, leaving less than 50 permanent residents by the 1970s. In January 2020, the catastrophic Black Summer bushfires swept through the snowy mountains and severely damaged the remaining buildings. Despite restoration efforts over the previous decade, much of what survived was destroyed, leaving the town a ruin. Today, Kiandra is closed to the public, a solemn reminder that even historically significant towns can vanish. Historical records show that over 99% of the town's structures are gone, with only heritage-listed remnants preserving its memory. Number 7. Joadja, the Scottish kerosene town reclaimed by forest. Joadja is located in the southern highlands of New South Wales, south of Mittagong, and was settled in 1870 as a kerosene shale mining town. The New South Wales Shale and Oil Company established operations to extract oil from shale deposits, and the town grew to house workers and their families. Skilled Scottish miners dominated the workforce, and at its peak, the population reached approximately 1,200 people. The town was almost entirely self-sufficient due to its isolation, developing a distinct culture and social structure. The problem was geological. The kerosene shale deposit was finite, and by the early 1900s, it was running out. Global petroleum production from crude oil made shale kerosene uncompetitive, and the mine closed. By 1911, the last residents had left, leaving behind stone walls, iron machinery, and foundations now partially reclaimed by dense bushland.
Joadja's population decline amounted to a full 100% exodus in less than 50 years, illustrating the town's complete dependency on a single industry. Walking through Joadja today is like exploring a town swallowed by nature. Retort ovens, a blacksmith's workshop, mining equipment, and workers' cottages are scattered among trees. The cemetery, overgrown but maintained, tells the story of a population that vanished, with graves of miners, children, and families who once thrived here. Heritage tourism now combines guided ruin tours with whiskey tasting at the nearby Joadja distillery, keeping the memory of the town alive while showing how quickly human settlements can disappear when their economic lifeline fails.
Number 6. Gwalia, the gold town that emptied overnight. Gwalia sits 233 kilometers north of Kalgoorlie in Western Australia's Great Victoria Desert. On 28 December 1963, the final whistle blew at the Sons of Gwalia gold mine, putting 250 men out of work. Within 3 weeks, the population plummeted from approximately 1,200 residents to just 40, a 96% decline in less than a month. Families left possessions behind, and the town became a ghost almost instantly, one of the fastest population collapses in Australian history. The mine opened in 1897 after gold was discovered near Mount Leonora in 1896. Managed by a young Herbert Hoover, who would later become the 31st President of the United States, the mine grew to become the largest outside Kalgoorlie. At its peak, Gwalia had nearly 900 men employed and supported a multicultural community of Italians, Croatians, Greeks, and Yugoslav migrants. The town featured a cooperative store, boarding houses, a picture theater, a school, churches, a state hotel, and Western Australia's first public swimming pool, reflecting a full-service settlement in the middle of the desert. A serious fire in 1921 destroyed half the mine, laying off 400 men, and by the late 1950s, many facilities had closed. The 1963 closure was the final blow, but restoration efforts since the 1970s have preserved miners' cottages, mine structures, and administrative buildings. Hoover House now operates as a luxury B&B, allowing guests to experience the life of a future U.S. president. Today, Gwalia stands as one of the best-preserved ghost towns in Australia, where visitors can see a community frozen in time and marvel at the rapid decline that left a town empty almost overnight. Number 5. Silverton, the Mad Max town where 3,000 miners left. Silverton sits 26 kilometers northwest of Broken Hill in far western New South Wales. It has the unusual distinction of being a ghost town that refuses to fully die. At the 2021 census, only 48 people called it home, enough to keep the Silverton Hotel running, maintain art galleries, and sustain a tourist economy built largely on its role as a filming location, most famously for Mad Max 2. The town was established in the early 1880s after rich silver deposits were discovered, and by 1885, the population had reached 3,000, complete with a municipal council, tramway, hospitals, hotels, breweries, churches, and even a stock exchange. What killed Silverton was not the depletion of silver, but the discovery of richer ore just 26 kilometers away at Broken Hill. By 1899, most residents had moved, literally dismantling their homes and relocating. By 1901, only 286 people remained, a 90% population collapse in just 16 years. Despite this exodus, Silverton survived as a small community of artists and tourism operators, maintaining a living connection to its past. Tourism boomed after Mad Max 2 in 1981, and the Mundi Mundi Lookout nearby became iconic for its flat, cinematic plains. The Silverton Hotel, with a Mad Max car parked outside, remains a cultural landmark. Winter tourism brings approximately 120,000 visitors each year, far surpassing the number of permanent residents. Even the cemetery, with 402 identified graves, tells the story of a booming town now largely reduced to a historical and entertainment site. Silverton is technically not empty, but with 48 residents in a town built for 3,000, it is a ghost town that thrives on its cinematic legacy. Art galleries, the Mad Max Museum, daydream mine tours, and the pub provide economic activity for the small population. Donkeys wandering the main street have become unofficial mascots. Silverton shows how a ghost town can reinvent itself without regaining its former population. Number 4. Cook, the Nullarbor Railway Town. Cook sits on the Nullarbor Plain in South Australia on the Trans-Australian Railway line, approximately 868 kilometers from the nearest fuel station. Established in 1917, the town served as a maintenance and crew changeover point for steam locomotives crossing the featureless plains. At its peak, Cook had over 200 residents, a hospital, a school, a swimming pool, and a golf course. In 1982, residents planted 600 gum trees, an extraordinary act in one of the most arid landscapes in Australia. The town relied on the legendary tea and sugar train for supplies, a mobile butcher, bank, mail service, and general store, connecting Cook to the outside world once a week. The transition from steam to diesel locomotives reduced the need for watering stops, and technological improvements made track maintenance less labor-intensive. After privatization in 1997, Cook was reduced to a refueling and driver changeover point, with the population falling to just 4 employees, a 98% decline from its peak. Today, Cook is a ghost town where the school, hospital, and houses remain intact but abandoned. The gum trees planted in 1982 are now the tallest living landmarks in the flat landscape. Interpretive signs provide context about each building, but few visitors come except passengers on the Indian Pacific who stop for 30 minutes. The town is a surreal experience, a snapshot of community life erased almost entirely by economic and technological change. Cook's economy is now limited to selling postcards and souvenirs to passing passengers. The abandoned buildings, broken windows, and quiet streets provide a stark visual contrast to the once bustling community. Visitors often remark on the eerie humor in the signage, such as the old hospital's "If you're crook, come to Cook" sign. The town serves as a reminder of how remote communities can be wiped off the map almost overnight. Number 3. Farina, the wheat town that God made last and then threw stones at. Farina sits on the edge of the Australian desert, approximately 600 kilometers north of Adelaide, at the junction of the Oodnadatta Track and Birdsville Track. Settled in 1878, farmers believed the vast plains would support wheat and barley cultivation. For a few years, unusually wet weather allowed the town to flourish. By the 1990s, Farina had a population of approximately 600 people, with 2 hotels, a bank, breweries, a general store, a post office, an Anglican church, 5 blacksmiths, a school, and a brothel. However, normal climate conditions returned, with an average annual rainfall of just 165 millimeters, insufficient for wheat. Drought and dust storms made farming impossible. Over the next decades, institutions closed: the school in 1957, the post office in 1960, the general store in 1967, and the railway line was removed in 1993. By the early 1980s, the last permanent residents had departed, leaving Farina a ghost town with crumbling stone walls and red dust. In 2008, the Farina Restoration Group began work to preserve the town, with approximately 150 volunteers each winter restoring buildings, the underground bakery, transcontinental hotel facade, the police station, and other structures were rehabilitated with interpretive signs for visitors. The town hosts an annual cricket match during the restoration season, keeping its spirit alive. While uninhabited, Farina comes alive for 8 weeks each year with carpenters, stonemasons, and volunteers preserving the story of human ambition and environmental challenge. The restoration highlights Farina's resilience as a historical site despite permanent abandonment. Visitors can experience firsthand the hardships of early wheat farmers and the town's failed attempts to sustain a settlement in a harsh environment.
The surrounding plains, dust storms, and sparse vegetation reinforce the narrative of human endurance against environmental odds. Farina remains a cautionary yet inspiring ghost town, blending history, volunteerism, and community memory into a living heritage project.
Number 2. Newness, the industrial ruin in the wilderness where an entire oil shale empire collapsed in a single decade. Newness is located in the Walligan Valley in the Blue Mountains of New South Wales, approximately 150 kilometers northwest of Sydney. It sits in a dramatic valley carved between sandstone cliffs, surrounded by dense eucalypt forest and bordered by the Walligan and Gardens of Stone national parks. At its peak, the town supported approximately 1,000 residents, living in workers' cottages, a manager's house, a hospital, a school, and a post office. The Commonwealth Oil Corporation established Newness in 1906 to extract oil from shale deposits, with a railway connecting the valley to the main western line at Newbridge. The shale oil extraction process proved uneconomical as crude oil became cheaper and more accessible. Maintaining the railway and the energy-intensive retort ovens drained finances. By 1932, just 26 years after its establishment, the operation closed, the railway was removed, and the population dropped to zero, a 100% decline in a single generation. Nature began reclaiming the site almost immediately. Today, the ruins are accessible via a dirt road that follows the old railway formation. Bushwalkers, mountain bikers, and history enthusiasts visit to see the crumbling brick retort ovens and rusted iron equipment. The site is heritage listed, with interpretive signs explaining the industrial process. The contrast between the pristine valley and decaying infrastructure is striking. Wild animals, returning creeks, and regenerated forest envelop the remnants of human ambition. Newness serves as a reminder that industrial ambition does not guarantee survival. The bricks blackened by weathering and the ruins' silent arches tell the story of a town that existed entirely because of a technology the world soon abandoned. The surrounding wilderness now dominates, with only the ruins hinting at the human footprint. Newness is both a monument to industrial failure and a triumph of nature reclaiming what was once cleared for profit. Number 1. Wittan, the town the government erased from the map because the air itself will kill you. Wittan sits in the Hamersley Range of Western Australia, approximately 1,420 kilometers north-northeast of Perth. It is not a ghost town in the ordinary sense, but a declared contaminated site covering 46,840 hectares, nearly one-fifth the size of Chernobyl. The town existed as a blue asbestos mining community in the 1940s, peaking at 881 residents in 1961. The government gradually de-gazetted the area, removed it from maps and road signs, and made it illegal to enter due to the deadly blue asbestos fibers. Mining for crucidolite, the most lethal form of asbestos, began in 1943, with the town supplying Australia's only source of blue asbestos. Despite early warnings from medical officers about chest disease risks, the mine continued for 26 years, producing 161,000 tons of asbestos. Exposure killed thousands. Over 2,000 former residents and family members have already died from asbestos-related diseases, and many more continue to succumb each year. Aboriginal workers suffered disproportionately, often assigned the most dangerous tasks. The government began closure efforts in the late 1970s, with power and services withdrawn, but a few residents refused to leave. By 2023, the last resident was removed, and demolition of the remaining structures began in May of that year. Today, there are no buildings, no residents, and no safe way to live in the area. The soil, air, and water remain contaminated, and full remediation would cost billions, with no current government commitment.
Wittan is not a natural death like the towns abandoned due to mining, drought, or economics. It is industrial homicide by negligence. Children played in the dust, families lived in contaminated houses, and the consequences are ongoing, with asbestos fibers dispersed across Australia in homes, schools, and workplaces. Wittan is a crime scene frozen in time, a reminder that sometimes the destruction of a town is deliberate, invisible, and deadly long after the last person has left. And there you have it, the 10 most haunting ghost towns in Australia, each with a story of ambition, hope, and eventual abandonment. From the deadly dust of Wittan to the frozen slopes of Kiandra, the silver deserts of Silverton, and the wheat-stricken plains of Finna, these towns remind us that human endeavors can thrive and disappear. Some fell to the harshness of nature, some to the unforgiving logic of economics, and some to decisions that cost lives. Walking through these ruins is like stepping into a time machine. Each crumbling wall, each empty street tells a story that no history book can fully capture. If you enjoyed uncovering these forgotten corners of Australia, don't let these stories disappear into the dust. Hit subscribe, like the video, and turn on notifications so you never miss an exploration of the strange, the forgotten, and the incredible places that make Australia more than just beaches, barbecues, and city skylines. Dive into history, uncover the untold, and walk with us through the towns that time forgot, but we remember.